Welcome back. In 1994, a strange, violent, funny little movie exploded into theaters and changed the trajectory of filmmaking. And that film was this week's episode, Pulp Fiction. Directed by Quentin Tarantino and produced on a modest budget by Hollywood standards, Pulp Fiction didn't just become a cultural phenomenon, it reshaped how independent filmmaking could look, sound, and succeed in the mainstream. To understand its impact, you have to understand the moment it arrived in. In the early 1990s, independent cinema existed largely on the margins. Studios dominated distribution, and smaller films struggled to reach wide audiences. Festivals like Sundance were growing in influence, but indie movies were still seen as niche, artsy, low budget, and rarely profitable. Then Pulp Fiction premiered at the 1994 Cannes Film Festival. Pulp Fiction won the Palme d'Or, one of the most prestigious awards in world cinema. Suddenly, a crime movie filled with pop culture references, nonlinear storytelling, and long conversations about hamburgers and foot massages was being hailed as serious art. And that contradiction was exactly the point. Tarantino's film rejected the traditional rules of Hollywood storytelling. Instead of a linear narrative, Pulp Fiction unfolds in a fractured timeline. Characters die and reappear. Stories loop back on themselves. Scenes linger on mundane conversations before erupting into shocking violence. The structure felt experimental, but it was also wildly entertaining. This balance between experimentation and accessibility became one of the film's most important contributions to independent cinema. It proved that audiences were willing to embrace unconventional storytelling if the voice behind it was confident and distinctive. And Tarantino's voice was unmistakable. The dialogue alone became legendary. Characters discuss fast food, television pilots, and obscure cultural trivia with the same intensity usually reserved for life or death stakes, of which the movie had plenty of. These conversations gave the film a rhythm that felt closer to literature or theater than traditional action films. But Pulp Fiction's influence wasn't just creative, it was economic. Produced for roughly $8 million, the film went on to gross more than $200 million worldwide. For studios, this was a revelation. A stylistically bold, director-driven film could become a massive commercial success. The industry began to pay attention. Independent distributors, particularly Miramax, suddenly had proof that edgy, unconventional films could compete with studio blockbusters. As a result, the mid to late 90s saw a surge in independent productions receiving wider distribution and marketing support. Filmmakers like Paul Thomas Anderson, Kevin Smith of previous episode Mallrats and Clerks, and Richard Linklater found audiences that might not have existed just a few years earlier. The quote, indie boom of the 1990s didn't begin with Pulp Fiction, but the film accelerated it dramatically. It also helped redefine what independent meant. Before Pulp Fiction, indie cinema often carried the expectation of minimalism, small dramas, naturalistic acting, and restrained visuals. Pulp Fiction showed that independent films could be stylistic, flashy, violent, and unapologetically cinematic. It expanded the aesthetic possibility of the movement. And of course, the film's success also sparked imitation. Throughout the late 90s, Hollywood saw a wave of Tarantino-esque crime movies, nonlinear plots, eccentric criminals, ironic dialogue, and pop music soundtrack. Many failed to capture the originality of the original, but their existence proved just how influential the film had become. It had become a template. And more importantly, Pulp Fiction helped legitimize the idea of the filmmaker as auteur within the commercial system. And Tarantino became a brand, an independent-minded director whose personality shaped every frame of his work. And that model, distinctive voice plus mainstream reach, became a dream for countless aspiring filmmakers. Today, when audiences celebrate bold, unconventional storytelling in cinema, they're often participating in a landscape that Pulp Fiction helped create. Because Pulp Fiction did something rare. It showed that independent cinema didn't have to stay independent in spirit alone. It could break into the center of pop culture without losing its identity. And in doing so, Pulp Fiction didn't just tell a new kind of story, it helped change who got to tell those stories at all. So go ahead and give a shot of adrenaline to the subscribe button so you never miss a thing. We have enjoyed bringing you 4 movies featuring Bruce Willis all month, and next up is rom-com month. Yeah, we're switching it up, beginning with Kate Hudson in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So be sure to subscribe to the Real Relationships podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. We appreciate our listeners, our supporters, and our viewers. Stay safe, stay independently spirited, and we will see you soon.